All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bishop's interview. Once again, I am Nathan Hinckley, and it's a pleasure to be with you tonight. I'm just sitting here checking out the comments and letting everyone jump on. We have a lot kind of on my mind and sort of plan to talk about tonight. So I'm hoping we'll have a really nice time together. As always, I appreciate you guys in the chat, and you usually drive the show through the chat. So I appreciate that. Just want to say hello to some people, Ginger and Janine, and some guy out there, Mike and Mark, and everyone else that I've been chatting with. Thanks for joining me. So let me just kind of introduce the topic a little bit, and I do have some guests we're going to talk to in a second too. Hey Wade, welcome. Tracy, thanks for joining us. Peter, if I remember right, is down in Australia, and all kinds of great folks tonight. This is going to be good. So hey Randy, one of my he says, where's it at? Good evening, my fellow hellbound apostates. I appreciate that, Randy. So I had titled this Death, I think I forgot a comma, Funerals and Mormonism. I guess otherwise it would just be Death Funerals, which I don't know. But so Death, Funerals, and Mormonism. And, before we get into all that, the first thing that came to my mind was funeral potatoes. I don't know if you guys, I like these things. The crunchy part, really is the best part for me. What do you guys think? No good or what? Hey, Sandy. Oh yeah. So funeral potatoes, hopefully my wife's down there mixing up a batch or whatever you call them. Oh, Mike says delish. Mike likes that. Yes, Wade, I remember you. Oh, my wife says yum. Maybe she'll have me something cooking down there. Peter says, do Mormons do casseroles for everything? And Tracy says, I hadn't heard of them until I moved to Utah. Come on, Tracy. Everybody's heard of funeral potatoes. If you haven't heard, it's widely believed to have emerged from Utah, basically for the the dish is popular at gatherings and funerals. If you haven't heard of that, how about green Jello salad, Tracy? Have you heard of that one? I'll be honest, I don't know what this is. I know it from the Mormon rap. Anybody remember that? Mormon rap? Do the Mormon rap? And they talk about something about green Jello salad. I've never tried it. So, anyways, that's a little bit of food that has absolutely nothing to do with tonight. But let's see. Wade says, "Yeah, funeral potatoes." What crazy shit started. Sorry about that, Wade. See what else we have. That's in Better Off Dead. What was that? Mormon rap. Wayne wants me to save him a seat on the. Sandy liked the Mormon rap. Y'all know that. I'm a fine young man. I'm living clean. Don't smoke, don't drink, if you know what I mean. I don't touch soda pop. Oh, that doesn't count. Never mind. Randy knows all about the green Jello salad with shredded. Gross. This is gross. What is wrong with people? All right, so we got everybody going here. We got 40 people on tonight already, so thanks again. So basically, this is what I had in mind for tonight, unless the chat takes us somewhere else. But I put out a kind of a call on my Facebook page. Hey, I'm going to talk about this, if you have anything to add to it. And I had a lot of people comment. I don't know if I'll get to them all. As a matter of fact, there's probably been a lot, even since I've had to leave my Facebook page. So I'll apologize for that. But, you know, this topic, quite frankly, it will and probably has in some way affected all of us. I remember being probably a young bishop. Well, it would have been before that, but anyway, in the bishopric, and thinking to myself, "Wow, like nobody I am close to has passed." I remember just thinking that's very strange. Of course, in just a few years' time, all that changed. So there was an event that has happened in my life the past couple days that has sparked these thoughts and this topic, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later. Looks like there's a chat over here or there's a fight in the chat. Tracy's trying to say, thanks, Pajama Grandma, for backing me up. Hey, I know Pajama Grandma. I didn't know that name, though. So anyways, yeah, funeral potato fight over there still. So anyways, so I wanted to get into some of your all's comments. I wanted to get into some of my personal life experiences, and then especially to talk a little bit about a dear friend. His name is David. He went by, to most people, by Chub, actually. And as a matter of fact, I went today and sat with Chub's mom and Barb, and probably for 2 hours, and we cried and we laughed. You know, it was actually quite interesting that as we were mourning and just dealing with what has happened, that there was a period of time that we were able to draw from some of the more memorable and funny experiences of the past, and we did have a period of time where we were laughing and telling stories. So and this has only been a couple days, news. So anyways, I'll get into that a little bit later. Mark says my father passed 5 years ago, still cry, miss him every day. And as we start this topic, let me just acknowledge that I understand. I do know that this topic can bring back very, it's a sensitive topic. It's can bring back a lot of different feelings. And so, I just kind of wanted to work through some of the good things, some of the bad things, some ways maybe we can all become better with this topic. Okay, so before we get into some of the Facebook stuff, I have some friends that I hoped would come on, and they graciously accepted. You might recognize them. Let me go ahead and bring in my good friends and cousins on my wife's side, Nathan and Emily Finstad. Hello, friends. How are you?
Hey, Nathan.
So you guys, I assume, are you at home right now?
Yes.
And you're outside. That's
yes. We were enjoying the campfire and some hobo dinners, and just put that all up so we could talk to you all.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we've got about 50 people on with us tonight right now. And, I think this topic it's just important to a lot of people, lots of, religions, lots of people handle this topic differently. And something that you guys, Nathan and Emily, that we have in common, my wife and I and your family, one major, I guess, situation in our life was the loss of in our case, a stillborn child. And I think maybe you guys are going to share with us a little bit of your thoughts and experiences around a similar situation for you. But and then I also Nathan Finstead here was a bishop in our stake. I've spoken of him and his family many times on the podcast, and did an interview with him that I hope you've seen by now. And if you haven't, you can find it on my channel called Mile Marker 356. So Nathan and Emily, again, thank you for braving the night. It's actually not too cool tonight, is it?
It's chilly, but it's all right.
It was warmer with the fire going hot.
So I was going to say, I know, Nathan, you and I were chatting earlier just about some of the problems that you guys see. Would you like to talk about that first, or would you like to inform the audience a little bit about the personal situation in your family first? Or
What do you think?
I wanted my wife to take the lead on this, and she's refusing to. So I'm going to shove her to get this prompted started.
Okay.
I guess we just share our story first. We found out in 2018, spring of 2018, that we were expecting a baby that had a chromosomal defect. So we knew from the beginning of the pregnancy that the baby wouldn't live, even if he made it full term and was born, that he wouldn't live outside of my body. So that was a really hard pregnancy, just emotionally. Knowing you weren't going to be able to, knowing we wouldn't bring him home. And so the whole pregnancy, we were planning his funeral, which was really bizarre, very surreal experience. But at that time, we were still very active. Nathan was the bishop at that time. And we really leaned on our faith a lot and knew that this was God's plan, and that's okay. We felt blessed that God would trust us with this special spirit, and knew that he was giving us strength to overcome this trial. And when the baby was born, we lost, when I was 6 months pregnant, we lost him. And so the funeral, we decided to just not have a service at the church, just a little simple family graveside service, which was beautiful. And it was our whole family. I mean, our immediate family and a few family members, and you and Amy were there. And it was a beautiful service. And I at the time found a lot of comfort in the thought that we would be able to raise him in the hereafter, he would be with us in the celestial kingdom. We felt like he was the lucky one. He was, a special spirit that just needed to come to earth to get a body, and he would go straight to the celestial kingdom. And so we found a lot of comfort and peace in that. And we're reminded by several people that, this was a good thing, that we would still be able to raise him in the eternities. And this isn't necessarily a funeral thing, but now looking back on that, and as I've studied that doctrine even more, and where that doctrine came from, it's such a strange doctrine to me now. And at the time, I feel like I found comfort in it. And now as I look back going, is he just waiting in limbo? Or if we lose a baby, are they just waiting as babies? I mean, we're told that they're infants on thrones, but if they are on a throne as a king already in the celestial kingdom waiting for us, how are they learning? How are they growing now? And what are they doing till we get there? And then we get to teach them everything then. Like, it just seems so convoluted, especially as we learn, as I learned where that doctrine came from the King Follett discourses, and was Joseph gave that doctrine at a funeral. And knowing now that there were at the time when he gave it, there were a lot of women who had lost babies. Obviously at that point in time in history, that was very, very common. And so I guess I'm just kind of rambling now, but you're not rambling. Like, it brought comfort at the time. And now because I think, that's what I wanted to believe, that we would be able to raise him. But now as I try to sit back critically and think about it, I'm like, that is the most messed up thought. That's so weird. That he would just he's an infant on a throne waiting in heaven for me to come teach him. But once we die, we already know everything. Like
Hey, Nathan, 5 minutes in, did you plan on getting into the King Follett discourse? 5 minutes in? We're deep, baby. We're deep.
We're deep. And
sorry.
No, you're perfect.
Maybe we
And matter of fact, I had someone reach out to me, a friend of mine from high school, not a member, and she said, I'm going to reprimand you, Nathan. She said, whenever I listen, and I didn't even know she watched the podcast. She says, whenever I hear you and you're hitting it like I'm loving, she's like, I'm bawling and I'm loving it. And then all of a sudden you go, I'm rambling. She's like, no, keep going. I want more.
Keep rambling.
So you're totally good. But I feel what you're saying. And part of me wants to give Brother Joseph a break. And it's like he was trying to comfort people and he was teaching things, and but the other part of me, it's like, is it real? Okay, so it may give comfort and stuff, and that's fine, but at this point I'm just more interested in real, in true and honest and real, and not just believing in something just to get me by or to make me feel better.
Yeah. And that's Nathan and I were talking about that today when we were talking about funeral services and having a belief in a hereafter. And I said,
in the context of Chub.
Yeah, in the context of Chub, and also as I was reflecting on the loss of the baby, and at the time, the gospel brought me so much comfort and peace because I knew that we would be together as a family forever, and so that brought a lot of comfort and peace. But what it also did was really rob us of a lot of the grieving process, I think, that is very healthy. Because yes, I was sad and we were sad, but I tried to focus on the positive. I tried to focus on this life is just a blip and it doesn't matter because we're going to be together forever in eternity. And so it doesn't matter that we lost the baby now. And so on one hand, it can bring a lot of comfort and not total despair in that loss. But on the other hand, I think it really takes away from some of the grieving process that is actually very healthy.
Yeah. Necessary.
Yes. And I'm so glad you said that. I'm going to get more into some of those topics a little bit later. And just to address the chat, many of these questions I do intend on getting to, such as, does the LDS Handbook still say to be sure the funeral services don't focus on the deceased? There was another couple, but anyway, we're going to get into more about handbook things and stuff like that, but definitely appreciate those comments. So getting a little bit into some of the, Nathan, you and I were texting a little bit today about just some of the problems that you see. For that matter, maybe some of the things that we get right. Maybe I'll get into that a little bit later. But some of the problems from your perspective. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, or Emily, or whichever one?
Yeah, I remember when we lost the baby. I remember looking back, I feel so embarrassed that I would say this. But at the time when people would try to console me, I would say with all the belief in me, I would say, we named him James. We called him Baby James. And I said, Baby James is lucky. He punched his golden ticket. He got his body. He didn't have to suffer in this world. And he's in the celestial kingdom. He's the lucky one. We're the ones who are suffering. And some 6 or 8 months, whatever, prior to us having that situation with the baby, my papa had passed away. And I remember as he passed, I would say to people, man, Papa's lucky. He doesn't have to be in this world anymore. He's beyond. Yeah. And I remember not even, as I look back, I didn't even mourn him much. I celebrated the fact that he's lucky. He got to die and move on. He lived a long life. And maybe there's an aspect of religion in the Mormon church that's a healthy thing, so long as you don't have the glass crack and you look beyond that broken glass and go, wait a minute. It's also healthy to mourn and miss and honor the life of that loved one, or to mourn and miss and wish the potential life of that baby. And so it's been a bizarre mental thing for me to go through the fact that I didn't mourn my papa passing because I was celebrating he was lucky. He's moved on. And then I didn't mourn my own baby being stillborn because he's lucky. He punched his ticket to the celestial kingdom. And so that's been a frustrating thing over the last 5 years to try to, as I reassess the loss of my grandpa and my baby, and then the loss of other loved ones. It's been a bizarre thing that on this side of Mormonism, it pisses me off that I feel like the church steals that from you. And if you're all in and believing and it works for you, it can give you a framework to make sense of it all. But boy, when that glass cracks and you're on the other side of what I consider reality now, man, I don't know if I'll ever recover. I'm going to just carry this forever. And in losing our dear friend, Chub, David Lewis, it's just bizarre to experience loss now on this side of it.
Right. And going to what you had said about baby James, it seems like I maybe remember hearing you address how it might have made your other kids feel. Is that something that I remember you talking about? Just like baby James has made it, or
we probably did talk about that.
Probably.
You know what, Nathan? That doesn't bring something to my mind initially, but there's no doubt in my mind that we told them.
Well, even
I told them
Ezra's
he's
prayer.
lucky. He gets his body. He gets the celestial kingdom. Looking back, you know what? They were young at that time. It was 6 years ago.
2018.
Yeah.
Okay,
Even as you say that, Nathan, like our now 18-year-old son said the prayer, like the opening prayer. And God, he thanked God for sending a warrior to our family.
Yeah, I remember that.
To prepare the way for us.
Yeah.
And so, it, those teachings influenced our kids and the way they thought about death and life and death.
Yeah, and I think I'm probably combining. Like I said, our stories are very similar. My wife's telling me that was in the chat. She says that was me. She's acknowledging now that she would say things like, Paisley must have been perfect, but Kaylee isn't because she's still here. And kind of, even though, anybody that knows Kaylee knows she, like your kids, just textbook.
You don't get better. Yeah, you don't get better.
But yet that doctrine has a way of placing certain people higher than others, and then you can't help but to think that you're less than because of that doctrine.
Nathan, I remember in my deconstruction discovering Marquis Peterson teachings from the 60s where he talked about, the handicapped children were cursed and the children stillborn were cursed because they chose wrong in the pre-existence. And then, just a couple decades later, the Spencer Kimball era-ish, it's like, no, the handicapped children are the blessed ones and the stillborn are the lucky ones. And I was born in 1976. And so that's why I looked at our stillborn child as a lucky one. But dude, imagine being being alive, having a stillborn child in 1960 when Marquis Peterson is going, your child was unlucky. He chose wrong in the pre-existence. And so at least I had a glimmer of Mormonism where my kid was lucky, not cursed.
Right.
It blew my mind. Those teachers used to be that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kaylee, by the way, Kaylee, you're perfect, Kaylee.
Or if your family was of African descent and then they were taught to be cursed at one point. So yes, I have no space in my mind anymore for this kind of, faith in a prophet for a time when we can just look back and I could show you 15 things right now that was taught as absolute doctrine, whatever you want to call it, years ago. And now they say, oh, no, we got that wrong. And it's like, then like we were saying before, I don't want to just be told something that's to make me feel good, and like we're saying, in this case, but as you pointed out, Nathan, there was just as many other parents who did have a child who was not in that category and would have been told, I guess the opposite would have been that they were cursed or something. So yeah, I just can't with that. So what other things do you just acknowledge? And some of it's come up in the chat, and a lot of these things will be on our Facebook thread. But just go ahead, Nathan. Any other things that you and Emily that you guys recognize as just kind of problematic in the church?
As a counselor in the bishopric, there was a situation where I was first counselor, and the bishop was helping a family prepare a service for a family member who had passed. And I remember specifically the mother of the person who had passed said, I would really like Amazing Grace to be played, at the service in the chapel. And the bishop, who to this day I love to pieces, a good man, said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And honestly, Nathan, I don't remember if this was Handbook or Mormon culture, but he understood that Amazing Grace was a little too Protestant for a funeral, and especially in the chapel. And as the first counselor, I'm sitting there looking at him going, well, he's smarter than me and knows more than me, and I guess that's the rules. And I'm sorry I'm sorry we can't help you there. If I'm not mistaken, I think Amazing Grace is in the hymnal these days, and this is just within 10 years past that this sweetheart of a woman with a tragic situation was told, it's just a little too Protestant for our chapel. The Lord's Spirit can't be there to mourn you in this time when you request this song. And that's no offense on that bishop at the time. He was doing what he understood and what he thought, and I think might have even been in the Handbook. And I look at now and go, we're singing that in sacrament, and we're probably going to hear it in general conference at some point. And today, if you request it at your family's member's funeral, they're going to say, absolutely, let's turn the music up. And that's one of those things that makes me scratch my head and go, doctrine or culture? What the frig, man? And I feel so sad for that.
The first place, as far as I know, that was played in a Mormon setting was at President Hinckley's funeral. He had that played. Amazing
I hope that
Grace.
sister didn't realize at that point that my child couldn't have it, but President Hinckley could.
Can,
wow.
Yeah. Hey, let me mention this comment real quick from Charity. She says, my name is Charity, to remind my parents what they need to do to be with their daughter that died. It's sweet, but I've never really liked my name. I do love my parents.
That's sad. That's a beautiful name.
So, Charity, I wanted to say it's a beautiful name. I'm sorry that your sister apparently had passed, and I'm sorry that the name has a way, as you described, of reminding. Yeah, we do that kind of thing, and all of my kids have church names, for different reasons. I think I think some of your kids have awesome names, by the way. Awesome names. So let me see. I didn't want to skip out on some of these comments, but take us through a couple other things that you guys just kind of acknowledge are a little bit problematic.
How about Rob from the morning process and no wearing of black? Is that cultural doctrine?
Yeah. One of the things that I said was, I hate the fact that we were always taught you can't wear black at a funeral.
Don't know if it's doctrine or culture, but
culture?
Emily said, why couldn't we wear black? And why aren't funerals on Sunday? And I was like, I don't know if it's in the Handbook or culture, but I remember that too.
You don't wear black to a funeral because it's not a sorrowful time. We're not sorrowing. We're joyful,
celebrating.
and
They got to die and move on.
So the Sunday thing is in the Handbook. I've been reading it today. The black clothing, not only is it not in the Handbook, I'll be honest, I don't remember that. I don't remember that being taught, but it probably, no doubt has been. I just specifically don't remember it.
No testimony. Yeah. It always bothered me that funerals were supposed to be a time to teach the atonement and resurrection.
About Ashley's text.
Instead of it being a celebration of the person's life or memories about them or good things that they had done, anything about the person who had passed, it's supposed to be about the atonement and resurrection. And I understand the tying it back to the savior and it's okay, this is all part of the life and death process and we're going to live forever. I mean, I get that. And I don't think that it's wrong to have a part of that in there, but to not like for that to be the focus of the funeral, I just think is wrong. And I think it takes away from it. I think it robs the people who loved that person who passed of the opportunity to really celebrate that person.
Yeah.
I had a family member today text me an experience that they had, went to a funeral of the family side that they married into, where someone had passed away in that family side, and they had not been active for years, smoked, didn't come to church, but were a Mormon. And so at the service, the bishop shows up to speak at the service, to preside and speak. And this family member told me that while sitting there, and they're active and believing at the time, while sitting there, they said, this bishop never even met this person who passed away. And they're just speaking about the atonement in Jesus and religion. And this is the Mormon path is the way to exaltation. And there's nothing being said about the person's life or the fact they're even dead. This is like a church service at a funeral where someone passed who didn't actively attend the church that's holding the service. My family member said it was so weird and detached, and it just struck me as odd. And I thought, well, that's a Mormon funeral, especially if you're not an active attending member. You're going to have a presiding priesthood leader preside and speak at your service and talk about the atonement. Probably share Alma 32 or whatever about the latter being born again in his image. And it's going to be very Mormon and very dry and not much celebratory of the life lived. And therefore, gosh, I feel like it robs the opportunity for people who knew and loved and experienced your life and existence. It robs them the chance to mourn and celebrate. And on that note, I got to speak at my papa's funeral as an active bishop, while another family member was the presiding stake presidency member. And after that service, I had someone come up to me and say, that was the most joyous, awesome funeral I've ever attended in my life. And your talk, Bishop Finstad, was awesome. Nathan, here's how I prepared my talk. And if any family members are watching who are offended, I apologize. I went to dozens of family and said, give me a memory about Papa. And they would say a memory, and I'd jot it down. And I would ask for details around that memory and try to jot down notes. And I just pieced together paragraphs about the memories they were giving me. And I got up there and I just shared the paragraphs of memories and details about Papa's life from the family members who gave them. And I concluded my words. Yeah. I didn't say Book of Mormon, Jesus Christ, Joseph Smith, atonement. I just talked about my Papa in the words of those who gave me their experiences. And I had people saying that was the most wonderful funeral I've ever attended. And I thought, you know what? I'm glad we did it our way. I'm glad we didn't follow the handbook, quote unquote.
Right. So that's probably the most common comment that I got. And I got actually quite a few on that post today. And it was just talking about how they all turn into a sacrament meeting talk or whatever. And instead of actually discussing the reason why we're there. Right. And of course, it's all, we always do a little bit, but the presiding, the last speaker, the one that everyone is going to remember probably. And the problem with that is it was always in the handbook. Now, I did notice a little change in the wording where it basically kind of gives the option for the presiding officer to speak. It says that he can or whatever, but it used to say, and I know because I presided at a lot of weddings, the presiding officer should be or must be or whatever the final speaker. And so, I've said this 1,000 times, and you alluded to it a second ago. On the one hand, it's awesome when these bishops are able to be a little bit more nuanced and not so tied to it. And, I don't care. The handbook says this, but we're going to do it this way. Like, I love that now. But on the other hand, if you are part of a worldwide organization that claims the prophets and apostles speak to and for God, and they write it down in this book, then, You know, like I struggle with celebrating that
Yeah, there's no
wholesale.
room for the gray area. It's black or white.
That's how it always was with me, and that's why I run an Exmo podcast.
And that's why we're
Boy-
on your Exmo podcast.
Boy, do you. Boy, howdy do you. Yeah.
So I don't want to keep you guys out in the dark and cold, but any other things that and I have some other things to get to, but any other things that come up as just you know, problematic in the funeral or you know, topic.
We had one other family member say, well, it was actually our daughter remembered this family member saying at a recent family funeral we were at. This other family member said, when I die, I just want everybody to be able to get up and share memories about me and cremate me and be done. I don't want a big service. I just let everybody share memories.
We may have said this a minute ago, but testimonies or allowing an open pulpit was, as I remember in the handbook, and I certainly learned it from bishops who served before me, not allowed, because it could get irreverent and melodramatic and out of hand. I remember that distinctly from the bishops previous to me being bishop, and I'm sure it was in the handbook too. I struggled to study the handbook, but I tried to follow it. But testimonies and open pulpit were not allowed, which I understand to a degree, but at the same time, man, let people share memories and stories. I had a family member tell me today, when I die, play some James Taylor and some Rhonda Vincent, play James Taylor, Rhonda Vincent, and scatter my ashes. You know, tell stories. I hope some of them make you laugh. I hope some of them make you cry. I hope some of them make you realize you were mad at me once and then you loved me again. I lived a life. Yeah. Let it be about me. Jesus died on the cross. He was resurrected and he's our savior. Okay, if that's true, hallelujah. I'm excited to find out someday. But I lived a life and you watched it in front of you. Celebrate that, mourn that, appreciate that. Hey, you remember Korahor? What's his name? The Korahor guy. I forgot his name.
Exmo Joe.
Gosh, that dude's funny.
Yeah.
I turn him on sometimes wanting to go, and then I go, damn, he makes me laugh. When he told the story, and by the way, Exmo Joe, I mean that with love. When he told the story about the young lady who was the serial killer. Sorry to get so dark, Nathan. Ted Bundy. He talked about that in a recent, I caught you guys on some channel talking about that. And he talked about that young woman in Utah who had told her little sister while driving up on some road trip, hey, when I die, play this song about seasons in the sun. I never heard that song that I remembered. I Googled it instantly and I teared up listening to that song. And Exmo Joe said, it was considered rock and roll back in that time. And the bishop told her father, that's inappropriate for the chapel, or, you know, and I guess Exmo Joe talked about how when she wasn't allowed, they weren't allowed to play that at her funeral. It caused her dad to have some cognitive dissonance and maybe even lead to him saying, well, I'm not coming back to church or whatever. I can't tell their story, but I remember hearing Exmo Joe say that. And I thought that back to when I talked about Amazing Grace earlier, the times where this family member identified with James Taylor. Can we not play a James Taylor song? And I told my wife, I grew up a headbanger. I had the most beautiful mullet in the world. Now I'm bald. God's cursing me for having that mullet at one time. But at one time I had the flowing locks. I played the drums. When I die, play some Metallica. Everyone sing along, have a laugh, eat some donuts, and enjoy the fact that I did exist. Rather than, well, that's inappropriate and Jesus is offended. Well, he already died for me if it's real. I don't think he's going to be offended at celebrating the life that was. And so I appreciate Exmo Joe shout out. That story really touched me and humbled me. And it made me reconsider, you know, the way I want my life celebrated when it's over, or the way others want or should have their life celebrated when it's over.
Let me just say something to my viewers, not to you two right now. Do you see why I love these two so much? I mean, they are so good. And here's the other thing. Do you see how when I was bishop and they stepped away, I was like, are you kidding me?
Sorry.
These two were friggin' awesome. And Emily's going to get on my podcast.
Yes.
Hopefully one of these days.
Hey, Nathan.
We got Nathan's story, but
Wrestling season ended yesterday. Our son finished third in the state. Awesome season. Our daughter finished second in the state. Awesome season. And she kept telling me, after wrestling season, I'm going on. And I told her,
We've got summer season coming.
it's over, baby. So put the date on the calendar. She's coming on. She's amazing.
Well, let me read these 2 quick comments while I still got you. Chupacabra says, I spoke at my father's funeral last fall. I was honest about his good and bad points. I also called out the church and members on a number of issues. No scriptures, no Jesus. Funeral was about him.
Awesome.
And then Susan says, my heart goes out to the Finstads. I gave up the funeral of my stillborn baby to sacrifice the money for the church building fund.
Man.
45 years later, the loss is still there. My deepest sympathy to you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Susan.
I'm
Wow.
sorry.
All right. So, guys, I wanted to thank you for coming on. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up along those lines?
We're good.
I think we're good.
Okay. Well, don't go too far. Cuddle up by the fire. Somebody earlier said they love the way you love your wife, Nathan. So.
I do it when the camera's on, extra special. Hey, are you going to talk about cremation versus not cremation? Because I remember when that was a no-no, and I think now it might be a yay, right? I don't know.
Well, I have the handbook copied. I don't see that it says yay. I think that it still says it's not recommended, but if you want to do
a little more nuanced.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get cremated.
Yeah. Somehow Mormonism is finding all kinds of nuance that I
Imagine
don't know where it came from.
Imagine the handbook being a little nuanced. It used to be black and white, and now it's a little nuanced.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you guys. I'm going to let you stoke up the fire and enjoy your evening. We have some other stuff to get to, but thanks again.
Bye.
All right, take care. All right, guys. So that was my good friends, the Finstads. I've got 75 people on, so we're still going. Janine says I'm going to be cremated, and I know I've heard lots of really just heartfelt stories about, ashes being put either in the mountains or whatever. So, yeah. All right. So let me get to some of these Facebook posts. Oh, I'll share this real quick as just a little buffer. So I was on Facebook and I saw this ad. This right there in the middle, Book of Mormon and a Mountain Dew. I'm like, what the heck? So I click on it, and it's like free Book of Mormon and Baja Blast. I'm like, what? So then I say, hey, Scott, is this still available? Specifically, the Baja Blast. And he says, yes, it is. But the idea is you read the book, too. I said, haha, no thanks. I've got plenty. Let's see. He says, have you read it? Have you read any of them? Pretty cool. Not going to lie. I said, all of them. And then I said, if I give you my address, will you just send the Baja Blast? Oh my gosh. Oh, it's hard for me to go from joking to more serious, but much love to you, Pajama Grandma. I know I've heard of this story, and I'm very, very sorry. All right, yeah, it probably is a missionary technique. All right, let me see what else I had. Okay, I need to share this. Now, somebody sent this to me. I am not a member of this group, but I feel like maybe I want to be. It's called Sistas in Zion. And I want you to check out what was put here. This was from 2020. Saints, there's 3 things I'm going to need y'all to help my bishop remember when he officiates my funeral. It's going to be a black funeral, like blackety black. And it's going to be at the LDS chapel because that's where I pay my tithing. So my family is not spending money on another location just because there'll be some drums up in there. P.S. I don't need none of y'all snickering if my bishop is up there clapping offbeat. Because like Elder Holland said, we get credit just for trying. Also, the choir is going to have a special guest director. So my apologies in advance to the ward chorister, but members of the ward with rhythm are welcome to sing. Number 2, I'm wearing red. If I got to be in temple clothes to get into heaven, just tuck the temple clothing packet on the side of the casket. I'm going to change when I get to the veil if Jesus says it's mandatory. If any of my friends are at the pulpit paying their respects and start saying, I remember this time, Bishop, cut the mic off. FYI, black funerals are called a homegoing, not to be confused with an LDS homecoming. If y'all have returned missionaries telling whack mission stories at my homegoing, I will haunt the entire congregation. These are the things my brain just has to sort out at 3 o'clock in the morning. Let me go get my scriptures and start reading, because that always puts me straight to sleep. So Pajama Grandma says, yes, I follow them. They're great. So I don't know much about this group, but I loved what this sister says. Having said that, let me just point out that even though she has made her wishes known, it's in writing, lots of people know, if that bishop, when this sister passes, is not nuanced, there's going to be some problems. Because as we're going to see, there's a lot of talk in the handbook about reverence and respect and things. And don't get me wrong, I see nothing irreverent or, I see no lack of respect in anything she said. But I know that many bishops will say, yes, this is not in line with, the Lord's purposes or whatever, bullshit reason. So that's going to be a problem. Having drums in the chapel is probably going to be a problem. Now I would love it. I would welcome it. When I was bishop, unfortunately, I would probably have to say I wouldn't have allowed them to bring in drums. But so anyways, you kind of see somebody, and one Mountain Dew, please hold the Book of Mormon. So you kind of see how this whole idea, it's ripe for problems, because a lot of these things are not, just simply are not going to be allowed. So I put out the Facebook post today. Let me just go through a few of the things that people had said, sort of like that. Randy says, I attended a funeral where Stairway to Heaven was played. The song was cut off before the great guitar solo. All right, so a few here. We'll get as many as we can for a little bit. Dave says, my wife and I were talking today about the afterlife, and we recently retired. I said, I hope the next life is like this. We travel and do what we want, and when we want to do it. We've retired and gone to heaven. I love that. Bob says, my 9-year-old sad day. When my dad died, people told me he was needed on the other side. Even then, I knew it wasn't true. And here's a picture. This picture, it really affects me, Bob, that you as a 9-year-old were told that God just needed your dad on the other side. And I want Mormons and, probably all religions, but, let's face it, I can speak to Mormonism. We need to realize that this reason that we give is not sufficient. And a young kid does not want to hear that somebody needed their dad more than them. That is a damaging concept. And I know that it's meant, you mean well, but I don't like that. All right. This is Cindy Roberts. I think she's in the chat. Cindy, I can't tell you how sorry I am, but she says, the hardest thing a parent should ever have to do is bury their child. I had to do that January 19th, 2008, and this was his death date. The hardest part about losing Ethan is, in my mind, I have to do and be everything celestial if I'm going to be with him again, according to Mormonism. That's a lot for me to fathom, let alone believe. It has never been more real than now that I have a son who passed at 4 months, before any accountability. So there is no question where he is, exaltation. But will I be there too? And so this whole teaching, once again, while it means well, and Emily spoke to this a little bit, and kind of where we get a lot of this teaching. Now, look, I'm not here tonight to say what happens on the other side. I don't know. And my wife pointed this out, and I was talking to her earlier today. Non-members, or let me rephrase that, fully active Mormons believe that if they became exmo or unbelieving or atheist or whatever, that there's no hope and it's all despair and just a terrible life. That's not so. That's not so. And surprisingly, and I heard my wife telling someone that she was talking to on Facebook, I'm pretty sure is where the conversation was happening. But she was reading and telling this person how she's actually found a surprising wealth of just peace at not knowing. And, as Mormons, we claim to know everything, know exactly why we're here. We came for this reason, to get a body and to have experiences and all this. And, there's actually a lot of peace in just saying, look, I do not know. And I was going to save this for the end, but I'll just say, I don't know, but I know it has nothing to do with new names, handshakes, baker's hats. It has nothing to do with this stuff. And there's no doubt in my mind, Cindy, that, if there's a heaven, and I hope that there is, and I believe that there is, that you will be there, as will your baby. Okay. Sorry, I was just reading some more comments. All right. The requirement to make the funeral a preaching or proselytizing opportunity is disgusting. Instead of honoring the person that passed and helping people mourn or grieve with one another, it turns into another sales pitch to non-Mormons and a chance to pat yourself on the back and feel better than everyone else because you are part of the chosen people and have it all figured out. Exactly, Robert. That's what I was also trying to say. That, we have all the answers here. And, you say it with such, you're so sure that you're hoping that it's going to, Robert says that's me. Okay. Chupacabra. Your hope that it's going to, convert half the audience or congregation. This is a friend of mine. When my stepdad, non-member, died, held his funeral just like every other funeral we had ever attended. It was normal to us. Quiet, hymns, a speaker, not a preacher. We focused on Roger and the good life he led. Afterwards, a non-member cousin was overheard saying it was a very weird funeral. I honestly don't know what we could have done differently other than maybe be louder. Let me just recognize that what's normal to some people is going to be weird to others, and vice versa. And it doesn't make one right or one wrong, even though that's actually the problem, is when your mindset is, as mine was in Mormonism, that we are right across the board. It doesn't matter if we're talking about, marriages and weddings, or if we're talking about funerals or anything in between, baptisms or anything in between, the communion, or sacrament or whatever it is. You know, it was always the mindset that we are right and everyone else is wrong or weird. This was interesting. Karen said, before my mother died at 90, she made it very clear that she did not want the focus to be on her life. It was to solely be a missionary teaching time. She was controlling even in her death. You know, and once again, if that's their wishes, then so be it, right? This is my wife saying, oh yeah, the other churches are, you know, they're just playing church. And if you don't know what that's referring to, maybe I'll do a full episode on Mr. Brad Wilcox, but okay. This brings up, I guess, maybe the next point. Jacob says, my dad just passed away in December. It was really bizarre after leaving the church to see him in all of the temple clothing in the casket. To be honest, I was kind of pissed. Then, of course, some of the church people came and gave their speech talking about the priesthood and all this other nonsense. I don't know. It kind of irked me. You know, there was a funeral that I presided at as bishop. We actually built in the ward. We built the casket, and I overheard some people from the community, non-members, really pushing back on the clothing that this person was buried in. So look, I'm going to agree with Sistas in Zion. This is a problem, Mormon Church. This is a problem. Why is this necessary to put temple robes on people that are going to be seen in the public by who knows who? This is a ridiculous and, quite frankly, just absurd teaching. Now, if it's symbolic, fine. Put it in there. Let it deteriorate with everything else. But this whole idea, you know, and I've got the handbook on here. Maybe we'll get to it. Maybe we won't. You know, it says if you're not able to dress the person, then just place the packet inside. Let's make that the rule. This is ridiculous. I don't know how many people, 5, 6, 7 different people I've dressed. It's hard. You know, it's awkward. Of course, there's this whole gender thing. You know, you can only do one gender, which, you know, fine. It's just the whole thing is awkward. Then it says that in some places you have to be licensed and trained to even touch a body that's passed. So now you're telling the funeral whoever person, oh no, it's got to go over here and this and tie that and do this. It's ridiculous. This whole thing needs to go away. There's no point in dressing people in this. Get rid of it. Let me check some comments for a second. Peter says it's all about appearing righteous. Yeah, it's sacred and secret, but the clothing can be displayed. It makes no sense. It's just, you know, I think when this teaching or idea or whatever come out, it must have been within a very Mormon context area. Everyone, you know, it's like in the real world, it doesn't work. Oh, God. But Charity says, I've heard that public figures are not buried in temple garments. Well, we can't have that. We can't have Mitt Romney not having his packet on. When's he supposed to get dressed? Yeah, I mean, come on. Think. Oh, God. All right. Let's see what else we have. Oh, you mean captive audience sacrament meeting for the recently departed. Touche, Steve. Gordon says cremation actually takes care of the problem about the temple clothes because it's cheaper. You scatter the ashes. and then if you want to have like a physical thing, why not donate to something nice in the city or something? I'll have to say that kind of makes sense to me. I've never gave a whole lot of thought to cremation, but that does make sense. Thanks, Lillian. She says, you do a great job in relating with Mormonism and the culture. Thanks for your bravery. I appreciate that. And Peter says, and funerals really aren't about the dead. It's all about the living left behind. That's how it can turn into. All right, let me see what else we had. So this one was... Oh, yeah. So this person, Susie says, basically there was a girl who hadn't been to the temple in 20 years. And she had died of a drug overdose. Apparently, was living a pretty rough life. And they dressed her in the temple clothing. Her AA and Narcotics Anonymous friends were there. And I'm sure many of them were thinking, what the hell? So it's just... I'm sure, on the one hand, the faithful side is like, well, it doesn't matter that she's not active. It doesn't matter she's not been to the church in 20 years. She still needs to wear this. We are brainwashed. That's it. We are brainwashed in just because some prophet at some point decided something. We just run with it. We just kick the can down the road. We got to do it this way. It's very important. Unless you're Mitt Romney, this is why I cannot do this anymore. It's just, it doesn't connect anymore. And most of it is this problem. It's a different topic. Right now we're talking about clothing, but the topic is a person at a time, a prophet at a time decided a thing. And from then on, and he said, the Lord has said, how did he say it? Let's talk more about how did the Lord say that? Oh, well, I had an impression. Okay, so you had an impression or you had a feeling that this needed to happen. And so now it's our customs, it's our traditions, and it's our doctrine. And it's just, where did this come from? And I was just talking about this same type thing the other day about garments. So, yeah. Okay. Yep. Same, Karen. Same. It's a good point, Janine. All right. Let me see what else we have real quick, and we'll get to some other stuff. So Jean Marie says 6 out of 7 siblings are out of the church, and at both of our parents' funerals, there was 6 of us that didn't say any churchy stuff. And then, in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. She's got it as one word. We didn't say the churchy stuff or the in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. But I did have a TBM brother that did. So the majority of the time we focused on stories about mom and dad. And she just goes on to say that we feel like we won by paying a loving tribute to our parents. We put the focus where it belonged. And this is the point that in what we see, and I've pointed this out before with weddings, and I'm in the wedding business. Other churches and other denominations and other people do it so much better than us. And I've pointed out the reasons why. Same thing with funerals. Do we really need the very last thing of someone's life being something that is sort of divisive in the way that they're dressed? I mean, we spend their whole life telling people how to dress, what to put on under their clothes, right? What to wear, what not to wear. Do we really need to do that at their funeral? Okay. So, this person, this was actually interesting. I'll read it. It says, my husband and his family are Catholic, and I no longer practice my Mormon faith. My mother-in-law came to visit with us for about two and a half years, and in that time, women from the church befriended her, and she started going to church. She was diagnosed with advanced terminal cancer and chose to be baptized quickly. It was a beautiful baptism because it showed her faith. She sadly passed away a few days later. We had her funeral at the Mormon church because my husband was Catholic. He wanted to keep with some Catholic traditions. My mother-in-law was cremated, so they did a procession down the aisle with family and her ashes. Music was played. It was traditional Christian music. I even sang Amazing Grace and played over the speaker At Last by Etta James. Friends and family got up and shared memories, and the love they had for her. It was a beautiful service. That was a non-traditional Mormon service. This was the part I wanted to focus on. So remember, if you're Mormon, you do not have to stick with the traditional Mormon service. You can make it whatever you want in the Mormon chapel. If someone tells you differently, they are lying or serving self-interest. So I'm going to have to sort of push back on that. I love the comment and I love the idea. And, you know, I say this all the time and I've already said it tonight. But the church has a handbook. And, you know, I know that the church's trust, in some ways, many people are trying to be so nuanced about everything. And, you know, again, I love it on one hand. On the other hand, we do have a handbook. Bishops are told to stay to the handbook. So, okay, if we just think that through, just logically, we really hope our bishop is one of the bishops that does not follow the handbook. Like, if you take that thought process out to its logical conclusions, where do we end up? We end up saying, we hope that our bishop or, you know, our local congregation is not going by what the prophet says. I mean, you know, that's problematic for Mormonism. And then you get into bishop roulette. And as Emily says, the bishop can nix what you want to do. You're absolutely right. Oh, God. Nathan. When I die, bury me face down so the world can kiss my ass. Oh, he waited till he got in the comments to get all funny. Janine's calling me out on saying Mormon. Nope, Janine, I can't quit. I can't quit. All right, let me see what else I had real quick. Yeah, so Randy was talking about how he was lying in his bed and his wife had passed away, and they were discussing dressing her in the temple clothes. And he says, before I could even open my mouth to respond, my entire bed completely collapsed. I have no doubt that my late Melinda was letting me know what she thought about that idea. I told her sister that there was no way I would let her be buried in temple clothes. And she had only been through the temple once and had not been active since. I just can't imagine that in the hereafter, this is a good point, God will see his children coming up without their temple clothes on and send them to hell. In fact, last I checked, the temple clothes do not ascend into the spirit world with the spirits. It's all about putting on a show, in my humble but educated opinion. By the way, Melinda was buried in a beautiful dress that I purchased just for her funeral. Much love to you, Randy. Okay, we're almost through with this part. Let me see here. I think two more. So I did like this. This is Keith. He says, I served nearly 6 years as a bishop and conducted 17 funerals. Mother of 6, cancer, father of 5, took his life, natural causes from 50 to 98, infant death, plane crash, sudden death, accidents, and teen suicide. There were not active, some were not active, and I did not know them well. I tried to give support to what the family wanted, be it open or closed casket, cremation, dress, etc., and avoid preaching. I did not allow open mic or Masonic rites in the chapel. I have attended many funerals, mass, or life celebrations of family and friends. Services were nice and brought comfort. One time I attended a Catholic mass funeral for a mother of a close friend. The priest apparently did not know her. He began his remarks referring several times to he, until my friend yelled, she. I felt awkward and horrible. I'm not being critical, but how embarrassed, I couldn't help but think about how embarrassed that priest must have been and not knowing his flock. You know, that's a good point. There was a couple times that I was asked to officiate at a funeral. So, of course, we tried to get family and whoever to give the eulogy and speak. But as the presiding officer, I was supposed to speak last. And it is awkward. You know, you can't draw on any stories. You're trying to ask around, tell me about this person. So, you know, maybe that rule has changed, because as far as I can tell, it doesn't say you have to be the last speaker. It kind of says, and we'll see it in a second, but it kind of just says that you have the option to, I think. All right. And then the last one here of these, it says, this was Sarah Schutz. She was the grandma, whatever it was in the chat. She says, do you remember my mom's funeral? You were bishop. She was not a member, but I wanted her funeral at the chapel because it was where my friends were and where I felt comfortable. And I felt the funeral home was too impersonal. And Mom had been to services and activities there now and then and knew some people there. I think you let me and my family do all kinds of stuff that were against the rules. You and Amanda, that's her daughter, sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow because Mom loved it. I think Amanda told me you expressed some hesitation as to whether that was okay to sing in the chapel or not. I think you both sat off to the side, not up on the stand when you sang it. I don't remember that part about having hesitation, but I don't deny that. I even had Mom's pastor from her Christian church in Knoxville come speak. I do remember this. And her old dear friend, Walter Lambert, Chef Walter, who is not LDS, spoke. I do remember that. And you spoke at the end because I wanted you to. But even though I had been a member for like 37 years by then, I had no idea there were supposed to be strict rules on what we could and couldn't do with the funeral in the chapel. I'm glad I didn't know. I would have been really upset at the time. That was already devastating. Thank you for allowing us to do what we wanted, even if you didn't realize you were letting us get away with stuff. I definitely did read the handbook a lot. And as you guys know by now, I'm a rule follower. I'm more on the black and white side, and which honestly has led me to this microphone, because to me, you know, it's either true or it's not. And if it's true, then that means we need to follow what's said, you know. So, of course, I don't think it's true. When her husband's mom died, we went to Oregon for the funeral, and a bishop who I don't think knew her well at the time and didn't know most of my family at all was running things. Vaughn, the apostate, was going to give the family prayer in the Relief Society room before we went into the chapel. And I was shocked when that bishop, who we had never seen before and who didn't know Vaughn at all, had to give his permission before Vaughn was allowed to say that prayer, which was just for his mom's family anyway. It really made me sick. And he had to approve everything else too, and he had to speak at the end. I wanted to just hear about his mom. I didn't want to hear from some guy none of us really knew and who didn't really know his mom. Okay. So I think we've got a pretty good sample size of the problems, you know, the problems with Mormon funerals. Yep, Sandy says, spirit of the law, you know, versus the letter. But it's so hard when you have a handbook that's telling you what to do, right? Okay, so let me see what else. All right. So the last time I attended a Mormon service was at a funeral. And actually, Nathan and Emily, who you all just saw again, they were there. And I was sitting in the back, they were in the back, and I kept trying to get their attention. Like, hey, you ex-Mos, come over here and sit with me. But I never could till the last song. But the concluding speaker was the current temple president and who had served in the stake presidency with the deceased person, who was always the best guy. And this concluding speaker also was a very, very good guy. He went on to he was the stake president when I was bishop. So anyway, so stake president when I'm bishop, current temple president, he's a concluding speaker. Well, this was my text to him after the service. It was good to hear you speak at the funeral. Russ was a good guy. I had 2 issues with what you said, though. But all in all, it was pretty good. So, I mean, that's maybe a little rude. I don't know. But that's the way I felt. And I'll just talk about one of the issues that I had was this. He gave a good talk, but a couple times, yes, Emily, a couple times he said, and I hate it when members do this now. He said, the gospel. Now, anytime members use the gospel, they're actually almost always talking about the church, like the church and its teachings. They're not talking about the good news, of Christ or whatever, but, the gospel. So Mormonism. But he said, the gospel is what made this man, Russ, so good. And I was like, no, I don't agree with that. I don't. And I made that same mistake throughout my life, giving the credit to the gospel or to the church. No, that's not what's made me, who I am. I had good parents. I have a good work ethic. I have a great wife. I have a good community. I have good friends at church. There's so many things, but it's not Mormonism. And he kind of was drilling down that point that, the gospel is what's made him such a great guy. And so I wanted to point out, he never responded to that text. Okay. So I uploaded right before I started this stream. I uploaded a video to my YouTube channel. The problem is this video, if I play it during this stream, it will demonetize the whole, yes, Emily, no, he was good without the gospel. He was the best of the best. Absolutely. If I play this video during this stream, it will demonetize the whole thing, which, I don't really care about that. But you can go and you can watch it. Now, what it is, you guys know that I am in the videography business. Well, back then, which this was 13, 14 years ago, I was just starting. And so I was learning cameras, learning microphones, and we would do a lot of like family shoots of like highlight videos of families and just kind of learning the business. And so I was filming everything. Well, we had the idea to film a little family get together of us informing our 3 children that we were expecting. And so we did that by playing a little game of Hangman. So I'm going to show just a little bit of that video just so you can kind of get an idea for what I'm referring to. Now I've replaced the music. So I've replaced it with something YouTube wouldn't have a problem with, but you can go and you can watch the full thing. It's on my channel, but I'm going to play this just real quick so you can see. We started off for a minute of just playing around, doing family fun time, but here's some of it. Oh, hold on. It's not playing. Oh, why didn't that play? Okay. Sorry. I need to do this. Okay. All right. Let me play a little bit of this. So you get the idea. Fun little video, and you can watch the actual version on my channel. I liked it how my wife gives me this little kiss, and she's like, "You did that." Oh, baby, did I ever? All right, so the reason why I show that is just so you can see how happy, we all were. The kids were like over the moon. They're going to have another, sibling. Well, that pregnancy actually ended with a stillborn, as I've talked about. And so I dug up an old hard drive, and I want to give a warning to my wife. We haven't seen these pictures in a long time. It was a hard drive I had put away, but this was tough. This was tough for us that we were, delivering a baby that I believe the cord had gotten crimped. So this was a tough day. So shortly after, we have a funeral. We had an outpouring of love. Once again, we had people donating, even this beautiful little casket. It was all donated for free. And let me see. So yeah, we had a funeral. This actually is Russ, the one I was talking about, where I attended his funeral just the other day. Great guy, but he came and he spoke at it. And this is me doing what I have used this analogy so many times from my mission as bishop, in that with like a youth discussion, and even in a family home evening, and now even at a funeral. And the idea, you guys probably all seen this, but you basically have a long string. It goes infinity this way, infinity that way, and you put one little knot in the middle, and you say, this knot is this life. Everything depends on this life. Everything that is to come depends on this life. And all of this has been building up. I mean, that's the analogy. That was my understanding of the importance of being a good boy and a good Mormon and a good family. And so that's me describing that. Okay. So, yeah, Pajama Grandma says, I remember that time so much. Thanks, Cindy. Okay, so after a period of time, we were able to get a headstone for our baby, and so that's what this was. We kind of had a little fence around, and this was months later. And I need to really emphasize that there was some time. There was some considerable time that went on from the funeral to now setting the headstone. And so we went ahead and called, some friends and some family together. And I'll just play this one little bit of that, just a couple seconds here.
Creations of which I'm a part. Yes, I know Heavenly Father loves me.
So that's my daughter, helping me sing, I know Heavenly Father loves me. So we set the headstone, and the reason that I had cameras going is we announced that my wife was expecting again. So I got some raised eyebrows from that one. So some time went by, and now we were wondering whether this baby would be, a boy or a girl. We had lost a daughter, and I'll just say, with all of our kids, we even some of them were born and we still wasn't decided on a name. But with Paisley, it was like from the first minute, and now we're thankful for that. But from the first minute, we're like, yep, it's going to be Paisley. So anyways, then we get together for this big family event where we were going to open up a box and balloons would come out. This was like the beginning days of the whole gender reveal. Now I feel like it's gotten kind of crazy. Back then, this was like a new thing, and we were having a good time with it.
Hold on. I'm not opening it, I'm just cutting it open for you.
Don't pee.
Careful. I don't want to see it. No.
All right, hold on.
They took it to Party City.
Don't look.
Yeah, so we had the lady at Party City read the note that the nurse wrote, or the word. All right.
Get with it, buddy. Let me see. So here we go. Okay. Oh.
All right. Ready? Move that bus. No, open that box.
Okay, so you can see it was, I'll be honest, I'm colorblind, fun fact. And I didn't know, we didn't know. And so I was still like trying to, I didn't know what it was. I don't know my colors. But anyway, so that was blue. Oh, it was blue. And so that later was born Brigham. He's flipping off the camera there. That was a picture I never used because I realized that. But this is our Briggs. He's our youngest, and we love him. So my daughter was married a year and a half ago. We had a big wedding, and we had a bunch of flowers left over, and we were like, well, what are we going to do with all these? And we were trying to give them away. Hey, come get some roses and everything. And no one took them. So we took them over to Paisley's grave and headstone, and just really decorated it up. And so that's a special place. Hold on. Nathan says, read my last comment. Let me see here. How'd you get better looking over time? I guess it's that beard. I don't know. Oh, Mike liked the middle finger photo. Okay, so I say all of this to say in the past 2 years, in stepping away from the church, we have kind of heard some chatter. What about Paisley? Like, you can't step away from the church. What about Paisley? And with that, I think we've already addressed it today already. Just the whole idea that whatever comes next, she'll be fine, you'll be fine, we will be fine. It is not contingent, and it does not depend on being saved or being baptized or learning handshakes or any of that. I don't buy into that. And so I'm okay with just not knowing. And that concept it's almost you can't grasp it as a Mormon, I don't think. I've tried to explain that to some people. It's just that you can't understand that. You can't understand how can you be okay with not knowing, because we're real, we're honest. And the simple fact is nobody knows. Nobody knows. Yeah, right, Nathan. Okay, so getting into the handbook just a little bit. I don't really care about this stuff. We've already talked about it a lot. I have underlined where it says the clothing may be folded and placed next to the body. Let's just do that. Let's just make that the go-to. Talks about you have to be the same gender to dress. I mean, what are we worried about? But whatever. Talks about a man's cap is usually placed beside the body until it's time to close the casket. Why? I mean, afraid they're going to look funny? Let's just get rid of the whole thing. Let me see. Okay. For the funeral, it says, however, they should not join rituals or traditions that are contrary to the commandments or church standards. So, there you go. That's that whole bishop roulette. Well, what's against the church standard? Like, whatever is standard in the church, like we can't do anything that's going to be contrary to church standards. So that's kind of a problematic way to put it. That gives bishops every right to say, nope, we're not playing that song, or we're not going to do the Sistas in Zion stuff that she wanted done. And then it says church leaders should not include rituals of other religions or groups, in church services for the deceased. Goes on to say church members who take part in services for the deceased should not accept payment. That one's kind of weird to me. On one hand, of course, that's fine, but it's the church that's so worried about payment. And if you don't believe me, go watch the video that I did called Inheritance. They're the ones showing up at people's, deathbed saying, hey, you want to sign over your estate to the church? But, they're very worried that an individual might get paid for that, which, I don't think that should happen either. And then the handbook is for some reason, it really cares about this. And I remember our stake presidency. Make sure before you start the funeral, the casket should be closed. It's like, why? Why does that matter? I mean, I've heard opinions on this, but it's like, I don't know. It's like, let's put stuff in the handbook that matters, So anyway, I didn't like that. Goes on to say that the service should be simple and dignified. Once again, what is dignified? Well, Bishop Roulette. With music and brief addresses centered on the gospel. Oh, there's that gospel again. It says funerals are an opportunity to pay tribute to the deceased. That's good. However, such tributes should not dominate the service. What should dominate the service? What should take precedence over the deceased person? Nothing. This was interesting. video presentation should not be part of a funeral service held in a chapel. Why? I mean, you know, so many arbitrary rules that, quite frankly, I don't think, you know, I'm pretty sure I've seen some little photo montage type things, little videos. So, oh, here's that part. The presiding officer should be invited to offer closing remarks if he desires. Yeah, Peter, video presentations are a big part, but not in the church, not in the chapel, if the bishop is obeying. Do we want the bishop to obey or not? Do we want him to just do his own thing? Well, you know, now I would say, do your own thing, bishop. Screw them, you know, screw them. Do your own thing. But that doesn't really seem like Mormonism to me. Tributes should absolutely dominate the service, shouldn't they? Right. Yeah, Nathan. Yeah, I'd hate for someone to see my... Oh, God. Right. Okay. Let's see. All right. So this was something I don't think I want to take a lot of time on this. I was... My wife's calling me out for chomping ice. Sorry. She texts me. Quit eating ice. Nathan says, your show is turning into date night for my wife and I. Oh, that's sad. Take her somewhere nicer than this. Okay. So I reached out to my mom. We mentioned at the start of this a passing of a dear friend, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. My mom knew him a little bit. I said, Mom, just letting you know, Chub died today. And she says, I'm so sorry. And, you know, I said something like, the guy, it was a car, you know, a car wreck. And there was a guy that crossed into his lane and hit him and another 20-year-old and killed them both. The guy that caused it is not dead. And I just told Mom, you know, I guess God was busy helping people find keys today. You know, and I know it's not Mom's fault, and it's not maybe a nice thing to say, but that's kind of what I said. So she sends me a big email. And it's, you know, you can screenshot it and read it if you want. I asked her, I said, you care if I share this? I mean, she has great points. She's the most loving person you'll ever know. She talks about, you know, I believe that miracles can happen, but God usually just lets mortality happen. You know, I can't argue with most of these points. They are Mormonism. They are the Mormon mindset on, you know, coming to earth and having challenges and having mortal bodies. You know, I know all this. I knew all this. This is the type of stuff that I would share in the middle of the night. I mean, how many times have I got a 2 or 3 a.m. call? Hey, come here, come to the hospital, need a blessing. You know, I know that line of thinking. I've shared it with so many people. You know, you got to keep a eternal perspective. You know, she says, I believe the phrase God is always good is true. And, you know, I'm not here to pick apart what my mom said. It's beautiful. This was the part I wasn't crazy about, because she goes by and explains her beliefs. And then she says, to me, there is only one other way to live my life, if not by these statements. So she's introducing a either or scenario, a black and white scenario. And that would be to say that there is no God, that nothing matters, and there is no life after this mortality, and that we will never see anyone after they die. I cannot and I will not ever believe that. That's my mom's prerogative. And I don't know. I can't tell her she's wrong. But I can say that I used to have that same perspective. And that has changed now. that it's not that black and white, that just because I don't believe the first stuff doesn't necessarily mean that there's no life after mortality and that nothing matters. Like, of course it matters. Like, it matters more. Like, life and experiences and loving your neighbor, matters more now, not less. And that was I think the only part that I said, I do disagree with that part. And she said, that's fine. We each have our perspectives, and I acknowledge that. So, all right, let me share real quick. This is a poem from my daughter. I've shared poems from her 3 or 4 times on various episodes, and I've ended up bawling at all of them. I'm not gonna bawl on this one. I'm gonna do my best. This is what she calls death of faith. What a shame it is that so many of my ancestors sacrificed so much for a spot in some higher heaven, a heaven full of desire and hierarchy dreamed up by white men. They wore the shackles I've now buried with so much reverence, swallowed the lies down with mouthfuls of sacrament bread and a convicted amen. What they had wasn't faith coursing through their blood, giving them the strength to lose themselves in their sacrifice day after day. It was fear, the blinding animalistic kind that eats at you until you're only a husk. And so it makes me wonder if they're proud of me for being brave enough to break the chains of being enslaved to an eternal perspective. And so I texted my daughter right before the show and I said, will you expound a little bit on what you meant by that last part about being enslaved to an eternal perspective? And this is what she said. In seminary, I was tired of the primary answers. So instead of the answer to what should we do in the instance of XYZ being pray, read your scriptures, blah, 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 I had started saying, well, we just need to keep an eternal perspective. Sister Griffith really ate that up. I think I might know where she got that, especially from Dad's string lessons. If times are tough and you can't afford groceries, but you need to pay tithing, what should you do? Keep an eternal perspective. If your dad tells you the church isn't true, what should you do? Keep an eternal perspective. If your friend dies, how do you get through the hard times? Keep an eternal perspective. It'll all pay off in the end. Your discomfort, grief, and sadness right now doesn't matter. Except it really does. It matters so much. It's what makes us human. It chains your life to a fantasy dream of the next. And every time you tell it to yourself and use it as your reason to sacrifice, to suffer now for the blessings you hope will come later, you are enslaving yourself to a really destructive mindset. And there's never an end to it. You'll give up everything. You'll give everything up for your eternal perspective. It's like a parasite sucking the life out of you until you're only a husk. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how to say it any better than that. She has deconstructed and just has a beautiful perspective now. And it's not the think celestial, as Sandy says. Yeah. Yeah, Nathan says, keep them coming. Oh my gosh, she has so many. I need to quit publishing them on here until she puts them out. But she's so good with words, and it makes a dad proud. Okay. I've spoken, I'm not going to go a whole lot longer. I've spoken about my grandpa plenty of times. I loved him so much. He loved everyone so much, even though he was not in the gospel. It didn't matter. It's not what made him a good or bad person. Now, he did, in his very late years, he did do what he had to do to take my grandma to the temple. And I know that made my grandma very, very happy. And I was happy to see them happy. But the church never changed who he was. He was awesome his whole life. And that's my mom and dad and my siblings at his burial, I believe. This is my Uncle Mike. My Uncle Mike passed away, I don't know, what's it been, 6 months now? He was my parents. This is my parents. He was their electric guitar player a lot of times. So good at playing. And this was kind of what I said about Mike. I said, this is a picture of my parents along with my Uncle Mike. Mom and Dad played music as a duo for many years, but for a time, Mike had joined them. I love that addition. He added so much. I love the soul that he would play and sing with. I love to hear him do Mustang Sally. He loved music, and anybody that had the chance to hear him was blessed by it. Yeah, well, anyways, I was going to talk a little. I did want to mention one thing about Mike. The last conversation I had with him, I yelled at him. I yelled at him for a solid 15 or 20 minutes. And without going, too deep into all this, Mike was a believer in healing your body with natural ways, just put it that way. And, he had a lot of success in doing a lot of that. And so he had heard about me going to the hospital, a picture that you guys have all seen, to the emergency room with stress. And he's like, Nathan, man, I just wanted to talk to you. I'm sure the doctors have got you on some stress medicine or anxiety medicine. I just want to talk to you about, what that's going to do to you. And he assumed that I'm on some, medication. Fine. Well, I'm not. They gave me something that night. They said, here, they probably could have gave me some, moonshine, but they gave me something, and I went home and took it. And anyways, what I wanted to get at was I yelled at him on the phone for 15, 20 minutes. And I said, no, Mike, you want to know why I'm stressed out? You want to know why I was having a panic attack? Because, and then just take all of my podcasts and ball them up into a 15-minute version. And I just spilled it all out to him. And so I'm sad. I'm sad that my last conversation with my Uncle Mike was me yelling at him. And so, that brings me to Chub. So Chub, this was my friend. We worked together for 3 years. We did LDS church construction for a company. And so for much of that time, he was my sidekick, my right-hand man. Thanks, Emily. I loved Grandpa, and Nathan, I loved Mike. He was awesome. Nathan says, I gave him a Temple Recommend interview, the best interview I ever sat through as bishop. Your grandpa was the best. Yep. Yes, Lillian, thank you. Okay. Oh, irked. I'm waiting for Kaylee to correct the Facebook post that misspelled irked. Oh, okay. I don't remember putting irked, but whatever. I wouldn't know how to spell it if I did. Okay. Back to Chub. So Chub and I worked together for 3 years. We did for a duration of 1 year at 3 different locations, building LDS churches. We were superintendents for a company. We were close. I was very active at the time. I wasn't bishop yet because we were traveling around. So lived Georgia, lived in South Carolina, lived in Indiana for a year each while we were doing this construction. So anyways, there were many times that maybe my family would stay here in Tennessee and Chub and I would go and we'd have a lot of time on the road, and I was always trying to get him active. Like he's a member, but I was always, come on, Chub, just quit smoking, come to church. And Chub, for as long as I've known him, was a 2 or 3 times attendance per year. Show up on Mother's Day to be with his mom, and show up, maybe on Christmas. But look, this is the thing. He didn't need it. Like he was a great guy. Okay, he smoked, but he was a great guy to everyone. I don't know of anyone that had a problem with Chub. My kids gave him the nickname Chubby Bunny. I wrote about it on Facebook right here. Just talked about how my kids gave you, their own nickname. And then I talked about how so many times I would invite you to church and encourage you to attend. I even invited you to speak in church when I was bishop. Now this would have been unheard of for him, but he did it. He came to church. And he's like, I'm going to speak, and I can carry on, I don't really care. He wasn't really known to be, up in front of crowds or whatever, although he was kind of a comedian. But so he came and he spoke and he gave a beautiful, heartfelt talk. And it's probably the first time he ever spoke, maybe in the youth, maybe they coerced him into doing it. But, I'm almost certain it was the last time he spoke. And so he was hit by somebody that crossed over, I think even a median, and hit 2 cars head on. And, I was supposed to go on with another podcast tonight and do some stuff. And I've not been myself, because this one is different for me. When you are a grandpa, and you've lived, you're a good portion of your life, or even my Uncle Mike was a little bit older, it's like this guy was my age. And so it's been hard. But one of the things that, and I'll be honest, that yes, Nathan, one of the things I am struggling with right now is when this happened with Chub. I'm thinking about him. I'm writing a Facebook post about him. For 3 years, we were inseparable, because other than my wife and kids, he would have been the only, the person that I spent more time than anyone with because of work. So we were close. And this is where I'm going with all this. And I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. And I posted about this and some people misunderstood me. I went to his Facebook page and I realized, I don't need to show that. I realized that we weren't friends. And he wasn't friends with my wife. We had, 60 people, friends in common, but we weren't friends. And I don't know. All right. Got to get my shit together. I just wonder if it's worth speaking out, you know? But the thing is, so Chub has been attending church with a girlfriend who we know, and she's great. They've been dating for 2 years. And I imagine that he probably was hoping that she would get baptized. And he's probably thinking, I want to take her to the temple. You know, I want to have what I've always heard is so wonderful. And I don't blame Chub for unfriending me, because the things I am talking about are harmful for someone who, even though he never showed outwardly that he was super convicted or, you know, or believing in Mormonism, he does. And I don't blame him. Like, I would have unfriended me too. And I mean that, like, I have no fault on him, but I'm just, you know, asking myself, like, I'm yelling at my uncle. People are unfriending me. So it's like, is it worth it? But it is. It is, because it's either true or it's not. And even though it makes you feel good, you know, and let me be clear. I do not care if someone wants to attend the Mormon church. There's 100 people up here right down the road. I love every single one of them. Like, that's not my problem. I could go there and I would spend 45 minutes hugging on necks of people I've not seen in 2 years. The problem is that they don't want me. They don't want me there. And if I went, they definitely don't want me to talk. And it's not my fault that there's so many problems. And I'm just simply saying, look, there's a problem. And that's not my fault. And so, yeah, that's what I'm dealing with. Well, there's lots of good comments here. So I go over today and I spend about 2 hours with his mother, who was devastated. And I held her hand and we sat there and cried and talked. And we talked about the fact that I said, Barb, listen, I don't have a problem with anyone at church. She said, I got the same. I interviewed my good friend, current Bishop Craig. I got that same thing from her. She says, listen, I do not care what church you go to or if you go to church or anything. She's like, you've been a friend to us. I'm going to just say it. I was the reason why her husband got baptized. Like, this is a friend. This family is a close friend of mine. And I built the house that they live in, And so we had a sweet moment of her letting me know that, religion is not what's important to her. And, of course, I didn't want her dealing with that. She's dealing with, her baby. So we had about 2 hours of painful stuff, but we probably had 45 minutes, 30, 45 minutes of laughing. And I was telling her stories about working together and some of the hilarious stuff we would do. And I don't know. I just I think so many people are good, and that so many times on both sides of the issue, we let things that just don't matter get in the way. So I guess I would say we ought not do that. I don't know when the funeral will be, but I'm very sad that I am going to be out of town much of this next week. So I'm sad to say I might not be able to attend. But I did bring my guitar with me, and I shared with her a song today. It was a Merle Haggard song, and she loved it. And she said, would you, and she says, I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you come to church at the funeral and sing that song? And I said, absolutely. No problem. But I think that I'll be out of town. So we'll see when they schedule it for. She's going tomorrow. Will they stream it? I don't know. Songs. I don't know. I don't know if they do that still, but they might. Guys, let me see. I had a couple other things. Oh, this was a text from my dad. If you've been following me, you know that things have been pretty rocky with my parents. But my dad sent me this the other day, and this was a Jamie Johnson song, Lead Me Home. And he says, okay, I want you to sing this at my funeral, but preferably I'd like to hear it a few times before that. I said, yes, it's a great song. Oh yeah. It was a song called, If I Can Only Fly. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'll do one little part. If I could only fly. It's an awesome song. All right. Lots of comments there. Thanks. Appreciate that. All right. I think that's all my slides. Oh, yeah. There you go. If I Could Only Fly, Blaze, Folly, and Merle Haggard. So, guys, I'll let you know if I'm able to attend, if I'm able to do the song. I sang from that pulpit a lot as counselor, as bishop. I don't know how people will take it. Most people have unfriended me. You know, people that I was bishop to and counseling and getting up in the middle of the night to bless and whatever. And so, sing more. I'll upload that whole song to my channel. I got to go wipe my eyes and everything first, but I'll upload the whole thing. So, I'll let you know how that goes. Yeah, I agree. Never saw Chub not smiling. That's the kind of guy he was. You guys have been great. I've kept you on here for over 2 hours. Oh, I got some great people on here. So thanks, guys. This has been great. My thoughts are Mormon Church, do better. Focus more on people, less on things that don't matter. And I would probably give that same advice to all of us. Let's put people before trying to make a point or trying to be right. And that would be for both sides. Love you guys. Appreciate your support from me. Have a good night.